Everybody, at 6 o'clock, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Lonergan. Work for Gallatin County. I'm the president of the Montana County Fire Wardens Association. We appreciate those of you that have been able to hop on so far. We are recording this meeting tonight, and there's more that will likely join us as we get going here. Obviously, Montana and much of the West has some fairly critical fire weather and fuels conditions right now. As everybody knows, our conditions are well ahead of where they typically are this time of year in many locations, and now fire season's off to a start. And well, there's lots of theories about what's causing what we're going to talk about in terms of resources and what's going on around the United States with our wildland response system. It's going to be a challenge this summer, and with fire starting and the challenges we're already seeing and a long season likely ahead of us, we wanted to quickly get people together with local government throughout Montana and kind of talk with you about what we're seeing in the wildfire system and maybe what we can plan for as we move forward with the fire season here in 2021. So to help talk about a couple topics tonight, we have myself on. We have Mike Maltaverne from Bozeman Fire Department, who is the chair of the Montana Wildland Fire Committee. We have Rich Cowger from Columbus Fire Rescue, who's the chair of the Montana Fire Chiefs Association. We have Cory Calnan. We asked him to join us. He's the State County Cooperative Fire Protection Manager for DNRC. And we have Jarrett from Gallatin County Sheriff's Office, who is currently grant funded working with Montana Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association on law enforcement mobilization. So those are kind of the speakers. We're going to start off here in a sec with Rich Cowger talking about the current situation from the Northern Rockies Coordinating Group standpoint, some of the challenges we're seeing, and the discussions and decisions that we're already having to make here in early July. And then we'll move into a couple resource mobilization topics, with Cory talking about the Critical Mission Task Force concept, and then Jarrett will talk about Project STAR, and then we will see if there's any other topics or questions out there. If you do have questions, you should have a hand button in front of you on your screen somewhere. You can raise your hand, and Michael will keep an eye out for that, and we'll get to your question and get you up so we can have some dialogue with you if we have any questions or items to discuss. With that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Rich for the current situation.
Well, thanks, Patrick. Just to kind of start off with, as folks may or may not realize, through the State Fire Chiefs Association, one of the benefits that we have is that we've also got a seat, as well as the Fire Wardens Association, on the Northern Rockies Coordinating Group Board of Directors. And so that kind of puts us in a unique position to understand the situations that are confronting our area when it comes to wildland fire, and in a lot of cases help drive some of the policy level decisions that are made. And so we kind of have, several of us have the unique opportunity to sit there and really get the inside story and what that looks like. And what we're going to tell you is, unfortunately, it's bleak out there. With the early onset of the fire conditions, we've seen the Robinson Draw fire already, what was that, the 13th or 14th of June, burned down in the Red Lodge area, went almost 30,000 acres in an area that would normally not burn anywhere close to this early in the season. That kind of gave us the indicators of where things were at. We talk about partnerships a lot, the things that we do. Mike's heading up the Wildland Committee, which we partner up with the Fire Wardens and the state DNRC to help work through processes with our seats on the Northern Rockies, and that includes our federal partners. And realistically, what we'll have to say is that we're going to all be in this together through this, what's going to be a marathon of a fire season. There's nothing on the radar, literally or figuratively speaking, right now that says this is going to change anytime soon. No season-ending events that are even forecasted. More likely, we're going to be in this condition that we currently see probably through September, October. So, you know, and again, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news on this thing, but this is realistic. We're already, you know, we're into just coming into what our normal fire season would look like in the Northern Rockies. Roughly a week ago, not quite a week ago, we deployed 5 of the 6 Northern Rocky teams in less than 24 hours, and deployed the final one out of the Northern Rockies area just a couple days ago since they came off the Robertson draw fire. We've also brought in 3 out-of-region teams to aid in managing fires that we currently have on the landscape. And the reality is we've got more fires than we have team resources, because Oregon, Washington, California is all burning simultaneously as well. The other critical thing in there, even without the teams, that people are going to notice right off the bat is this scarceness of resources. So the ground units that'll actually make a difference are going to be hard to come by. For many of the MAC meetings that we had, I mean, there were no engines listed in the Northern Rockies area. And when they say no engines, that's including our federal partners, our contract engines, that kind of stuff. There have been times already since we started the MAC group where no available resources were listed. So, you know, rather than drag this on, the key to it is going to be that as we go through the season, we're going to have to rely on each other, and look at what, you know, make sure our mutual aid relations are in place, those agreements are there, the ability to work through whatever issues that we may have between organizations, to realize that to get us through this process is truly going to be neighbor helping neighbor. Many of us here have long been through the process of Montana Mutual Aid. We understand what that looks like. It's going to be imperative as we go through this season that we look at situations like that where we can enact Montana Mutual Aid. Cory will talk a little bit about the critical mission task forces that we can put together. But literally, you know, this is going to be, I think, one of those marked seasons where if we don't burn everybody out, by the end of it, we'll be doing really good, which is concerning at all levels. And it's just not us local government. It's going to be our state partners as well as our federal partners as well. So keep in mind, for whatever reasons, I mean, the simplest of things, we've already heard stories about we can't support fire camps with drinking water. Pump parts won't be coming, replacement parts won't be coming in until December. Those things are across the board. So if you're running into situations where you feel like you're not being supported, it's not because people aren't trying. There's just literally nothing out there in the systems to support you with. So that was one of the things we were talking the other night about on how do we prioritize our teams, is we may be able to bring more teams in there, but that doesn't mean we can support the fire. So again, that's a current state of affairs. It's very high level, broad. We were listening to a call half hour ago where I know the Bitterroot Valley themselves in that zone, they had 9 new starts, you know, that they were fighting, kind of stuff. So that's widespread. That's the stuff we hear across the state, across the Northern Rockies almost every day. So what we ask is, again, be patient. Folks are working diligently to try and get the resources that are out there. And just understand that there is a much bigger picture to this behind the scenes. And I know it's going to be tough even with the public pressure of seeing what's going on and asking why can't we get aircraft? Why can't we get this? Why can't we get that? But just realize it is not directed at any one individual organization. It is region-wide, which means that also other regions in the United States are being impacted. So I think that's kind of a real high-level, broad-brushed, depressing picture of what's to come. And I'm sorry for that, but that's a reality. And I'll let the other presenters go through and give some time for questions if we got any, but go from there, Patrick.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Rich. Cory.
Okay, give me just a second to get slides up. Somebody just give me a, we're good to go there. Okay, so this evening, again, Cory Calnan, I'm the County Co-op Fire Program Manager for the DNRC Fire Protection Bureau. Wanted to chat a little bit tonight about just some things important to DNRC as we head on into this fire season, and a concept that came out of the 2017 fire season that we've termed Local Government Fire Forces Critical Mission Task Force. And make sure folks are familiar with this and start to front load some of the very likely use of this resource in the coming weeks. So the Critical Mission Task Force, the concept is that in times of serious need, DNRC will work with our local government partners to pull some resources together to support ongoing incidents that are out there, mostly in a surge capacity, for a very limited time frame. This is still kind of untested. We're still working through exactly the mobilization of how this will work. But the concept is pretty important and has already actually been put into play a couple times this year. An example of how this might work with an escalating fire incident or fire perhaps approaching a community, one of our DNRC land offices would kind of round up some local government resources based on the request and the need for that specific incident. As I said, to assist with the short-term critical mission needs, likely in a surge capacity role, for something like structure protection. The objective of the task force would be to perform that critical mission and then demobilize hopefully within 48 to 72 hours. Some key points about this. It is similar to, but is not and does not replace mutual aid requests from neighboring jurisdictions and the successes we have with Montana Mutual Aid. This is a DNRC coordinated response using local government resources that we've compiled and put together out there. It was important that we still preserve and maintain mutual aid between neighbors. Even so, more important this year than they have in previous years. But this process that we're introducing here does not replace that. This process is approved, ordered, and coordinated by DNRC. If incident or local government jurisdiction is feeling that they're needing some help, that's a conversation to be had with the local DNRC office to get the ball rolling on this. And it is not intended to pump resources into the national mobilization system. As Chief Cowger was just talking, things are pretty dire across the nation and resources are very thin. But we're looking at this as critical point protection type mobilization events and not intended to pump resources into the system for ongoing incident support. Those resources remain under DNRC and local control as we normally would through the nature of our county, state-county relationship. And as we said, it would be mobilized and demobilized as a complete task force and would not be divided up or reassigned without some serious conversations and coordination with both the local office and the resources that have committed to respond. To make this work, it's going to be really important that all of our local government partners, fire departments, counties, local responders keep in touch with your local DNRC offices. Those are relationships that already exist, and we want to keep that. Update your availability for normal protocols with those folks, but it's important to understand that our fire managers in our state offices across the state are also very busy coordinating fire response amongst several other issues. And I want to make sure that we're not overburdening them with phone calls and check-ins and updates. Keep it short and sweet. Work with your local state offices in supporting this, and we'll make it work successfully. And just to put folks on notice, just since this morning, we've been in pretty deep conversations about how do we stand this up again, likely in the coming week with some fire activity approaching some values at risk in some communities. So a lot of the intent of our call here today is to put folks on kind of notice and into that ready status because we will be calling and likely soon. Just some general reminders from us at DNRC as we continue to endeavor on this fire season. DNRC is the mobilization and payment lead for all local government fire forces in Montana. And I just kicked this reminder out that sometimes as these incident management teams from out of regions do come in, they do, make good connections with local fire departments and local fire chiefs and begin working through, putting fire departments into paid status, which is just fine. But DNRC does need to be involved as we are the contracting and payment entity in those events. So just loop in your local offices if you don't already have your mobilization paperwork in place. Don't forget, there's a tremendous amount of local government fire resources on the DNRC Fire Business page. If you just Google DNRC Fire Business page, there's a whole slew of things specifically for local government resources that's available 24/7, billable shift tickets, contracts, mobilization agreements, anything you would need there in case you need it and can be found. Also, don't forget, we have the NRCG Mobilization of Local Government Fire Forces Guide. Most of us know that as the umbrella document in Chapter 50 out there to guide how we operate. As we've said before, keep in contact with your local offices. Make sure you're ready to go. Fire departments that do mobilize resources through the National Mobilization System using incident rental agreements or other DNRC negotiated contracts, there's a pretty high need to get those done, again, without overburdening our local offices with a bunch of phone calls tomorrow morning. Work with your local DNRC staff to make sure your incident rental agreements are executed and ready to go, and those have been transmitted to dispatch to make resources available if you have resources available. If you come off fires, get your paperwork into the state offices as soon as you can so we can get you paid. What we don't want to do is have to do a bunch of cleanup paperwork in November and December after we ride the wave of this fire season. As we all know, and we've been talking throughout this presentation so far, help one another out. Now is the time to be talking about mutual aid with your neighbors. Don't wait till you're already responding to a smoke call, a fire call. Things are only going to escalate from here, and the expectation should be that you're going to have to hold on to what you've got for longer than you're used to because there just isn't much help to come. Work it out with your neighbors, make sure things are in order. We know what channels, radio frequencies we're going to use, who we're calling for help, where they're going, what they're doing, and we can help keep everybody safe. And as been said several times already this evening, be prepared for the marathon. It does not look good. There's nothing even on the 30 to 40 day forecast for relief here. It's going to be a marathon. We're going to need each other, but be ready to call for help if you need it. And here's my contact info if folks don't have it. My phone number there. You can text or call that number or email me at any time. Lastly, just a big thank you to all our local government partners. As Rich said, Montana's always been good about neighbors helping neighbors. Our partners in the career, combination, and volunteer ranks are critical to our success and will be ultimately critical or super critical to the outcome of this fire season. We look forward to working with folks. If there's anything we can do to help facilitate some conversations, help you out with mobilization or fire finance, business, or whatever that could be, please don't hesitate to ask. That's it for me.
Okay, thanks, Cory. We know that Cory's slides didn't come through for folks, so we'll get those distributed to the attendees afterwards. Next up, we have Jason Jarrett, basically with Montana Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. They've been doing a lot of work on resource mobilization, and with how integral law enforcement is with emerging wildfires and evacuations, we wanted JJ to speak a little bit about the work they've done and what's currently in place. JJ.
Thanks, Patrick. 800 deputy sheriffs in the state, 147,000 square miles. You'd think we have plenty laying around, but it is not the case. I was just taking a short poll here. Missoula, Sanders, Mineral, Muscle, Carbon, Rosebud, Lewis, Clark, Moore, Mineral, Madison, Flint. Everybody's got fire going on right now, and the ability to move deputies to help each other is getting a little tight just because we have yet to have overstaffed any sheriff's office in this state for regular business in July. But what we have done is we have formalized for the first time a mobilization process. It's a little light because I'm in the center of it with Nanette Gilbertson and the Montana Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. But what makes it strong is that the sheriffs in this state are all absolutely willing to help each other out and send what they can, when they can, as much as they can, and they can move fast. We don't have fire trucks, we have cop cars, so we do move quicker. That process is in its infancy, where there's some starts and stops. It doesn't work like a regular fire deployment, but it's as critical because it's typically the life safety and emerging values at risk that require having cops around. We want to thank Cory for working with us on this Project STAR process, which was the way to get some of those guys in pay status when we do the mutual aid, because we still have to answer to our commissioners and sheriffs back home. And I would answer any questions other than if you have questions about it, let me know.
Okay, thanks, JJ. We'll pause right here and see if we have anybody that has any questions and wants to raise a hand. So any questions from folks or comments? Okay, quiet crowd. We'll give you a second to think about if you want to raise your hand. Maybe we'll go over to Mike Maltaverne, and Mike, maybe you can talk a little bit about, how we want to communicate in the future and what that could maybe look like. And maybe that'll pose some questions or comments from folks.
Thanks, Patrick. Again, Mike Maltaverne, Deputy Chief in Bozeman, currently serving as the program chair for the Wildfire Policy Committee for the state chiefs. But kind of like Patrick alluded to, we're trying to work on a bit of a communication strategy moving forward. And like Cory said, we already have a really good relationship between local government, our fire wardens and DES and DNRC. So we've got a good open line of communications, but we're going to be working on some type of a more frequent communication strategy moving through this season. We're a little bit hesitant just because of everyone's commitments on the home front, but we'll be looking for opportunities to keep everybody informed on what's going on, and as we continue to kind of develop these plans moving forward. And I won't reiterate what's already been said, but I think the need is dire, and I think a lot of the effort is going to fall on the backs of local government. And if there's ever a time to be thinking about the health and wellness of your volunteers and your employees, it's now, because as we've heard, it's going to be a marathon and not a sprint. So I think the success of this fire season and keeping firefighters safe is going to be at the boots level, keeping each other safe. So that's it, Patrick. We'll hopefully be able to work with Michael, and we'll be able to take this information tonight and reshare it with those that, if you know of a neighbor or somebody in your organization that may want to hear what was said or provide feedback after tonight, we'll have opportunities to do that, probably through the State Chiefs Association.
Thanks, Mike. Cory, we have a question in chat if Governor Gianforte is considering using the National Guard.
So the governor's office is certainly in discussions to that regard. I would suspect that they are looking at an emergency declaration that would provide access to that resource. So it is in the works, and it is being considered at this time. I will just let everybody know that I am in Helena right now, training National Guard soldiers for fire season. So after their pack test on Thursday, we'll have a good slug of them ready to go.
Cory, another question probably for you in chat, and I'll expand upon it. The question is, would folks being deployed need to be pack tested, I'm assuming, for critical mission task force? Maybe you could just talk about what would be required in terms of qualifications and such.
So the requirements that we'd be looking at for the critical mission task force resources would be similar to what we would mobilize through the system. So we'd be looking at a chief certification for those qualifications up to the engine boss level. Those documents are available on the DNRC website. You as the local government fire chief are allowed to certify your folks and the standards for equivalencies that those folks meet. And we accept that and we'll use those folks to mobilize.
Okay, thank you, Cory. Any other questions, either by raising your hand or in the chat from folks? Comments, questions, last opportunity.
You know, Patrick, I'll just throw out there that, again, just to reiterate, you know, having the thought process to be as self-contained or you know, that you're going to be it for probably 48, 72, 96 hours organizationally. I mean, you might have some mutual aid folks coming in or whatnot, but you know, what are those things that you're preparing for in the background? Do you have enough drinking water for your own folks? You know, can you line up some commonly broken things on fire trucks now to be able to prevent that downtime? You know, and talking to your neighbors. We go back to the Montana Mutual Aid and saying, you know, who's that phone a friend list that you can use when that time comes? Who are those single point of contacts in your neighboring jurisdictions and that kind of stuff, so that as an individual or a department that's involved in the heat of the battle, you know, what is that one call shop outside? And we still have the blue book out there, you know, that has a lot of that contact information in those things. You know, now it's time to make sure it's updated and that you have your call list handy. The other thing is, again, through these processes, be it through through the Northern Rockies, through DNRC, realize that we understand some of those are complicated. If you're not familiar with how to work through that system, you know, we want fire chiefs that are familiar with the system to step up and be able to be on that phone a friend list that can help you work through that process. It can get overly complicated at times and overwhelming when you already have a situation going on. And so one of the things that we talked about at the wildland committee level was, you know, creating kind of a liaison group that can go out there and help chiefs and organizations work their way through the process until you get a team or until you get some kind of relief. And you know, it's just be prepared and be as self-sufficient as you can. I mean, saying it that way, it doesn't sound right, but no, realize you're going to need help, but who can you rely on, you know, from across the state? There's a question there. Will there be a time when Montana resources will not be sent out of the state? They're not really out of the state now. Most of our resources have either been sent out of the state or out of the geographic area. Have probably been, once they timed out, they're probably back here. And keep in mind, here's one of the complications of the system, and that we find is that if every geographic area hoarded their own stuff, and I'm just going to say it that way, that limits the capacity of incoming help. And if we want to talk about mutual aid, even between geographic areas, it's the same thing, right? I mean, right now we have incoming teams from other geographic areas that are willing to let their resources loose and come help us. So, you know, it's a give and take. My guess is that you're not going to see a lot of our resources going out of the geographic area, but there could be calls for it, just depending on the prioritization and the needs kind of stuff. So don't be surprised, but there will not be probably mass exoduses of fire trucks leaving the Northern Rockies any point in time soon.
Maybe I'll just add a little bit to what Rich said and provide a little bit of a case example just to maybe kind of paint the picture for you. I left the Snake River complex this morning. Our team rolled into it in Craigmont, Idaho. last Thursday. We were the #1 fire in the country until today. About 80 some odd thousand acres on fire, in and amongst houses, all sorts of those issues. We were at 86 people until Sunday. Just this morning, we bumped 200 people on the incident. Yesterday, we got our first helicopter assigned to the incident. Today, we got a second helicopter. They still had not gotten porta potties when I left. I don't even know what else we had. I mean, the resources are so scarce out there, and we talked about this, that there's not enough to go around, and it's July 13th. So that's everything from overhead to the actual firefighters to the stuff the firefighters need to fight fire. We were running out of fuel because we couldn't get a fuel truck. I mean, anything you can think of was amazingly hard to get a hold of. And the scary part is we had the same challenges a month ago over by Red Lodge, and it's even worse now. So when we say it's bleak, we mean it's bleak across all levels, whether we're talking about local government, state, federal agency resources, contracted resources, contract firefighters, Grayback, Patrick. You look at those big, large contract crews that we see that provide a lot of our Type 2 and Type 2 IA crews. They don't have any. They can't hire people. They cannot get anybody to work for them. Rich's team, I think they got a caterer finally. They couldn't get a caterer because the caterers can't hire people. So those are the sorts of issues that we're talking about. Maybe we can get a team, but we may not be able to get firefighters or the stuff that the team and the firefighters need to eat and to put out the fire. So not to be scary, but that's the reality of what we're dealing with right now and the conversations that are happening at the coordinating group every single night. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Patrick, that's a great lead into kind of what I wanted to say. You know, Rich is talking about, he made the point of if you're in a position where you're going to send a resource out, you know, making sure that resource is self-sufficient for 48 to 72 hours. That's a pretty standard practice, and definitely want to emphasize that with what Patrick's talking about, the drawdown of our logistical resources that we can't get our hands on and the like. And I would just take it one step further and put a safety hat on for a second, and just making really, really sure that we all have really good situational awareness and knowing that the help that we're used to in terms of whether it be aircraft or logistical support or the things that we need to be self-sufficient, making sure that our people are ready as well, knowing that maybe that big machine isn't coming, and we may be out there as local government managing incidents, maybe a little bit stretching our capacity and just making sure that our folks are being safe. And you know, dare I say, that means making sure that everyone's going through their PPE. You've got plenty of drinking water, your equipment's ready to go. And you know, I hate to sound like I'm trying to babysit here, but you know, we continually have evidence that little things get missed and the attention to detail isn't there sometimes. And this is a time that we really, really need to have our situational awareness up and making sure that we're keeping folks safe too.
Yeah, and I tag onto that just a little bit more and say that needs to extend between or beyond our organizations. Now is the time to talk to your local political leaders, your councils, fire district board trustees, whatever the case may be. And let's be seriously honest about what the situation looks like. And typically in the fire service, we don't like to point out our weaknesses or our flaws within our organizations, but now is not the time to try and paint that rosy unicorn and pixie dust picture out there, because that is not it. We need to be able to be, you know, how do we get fuel in the trucks afterwards? How are, you know, not only our local budgets, but our county budgets going to handle this kind of stuff? The commissioners need to be prepared for using county equipment, paying overtime, all of that kind of stuff that's going to come into play, because again, you know, not to sound doomsdayistic, I don't know if that's a word or not, but nonetheless, of saying that there probably isn't going to be a cavalry coming in anytime real soon. And if you've hit the priority list enough for the cavalry to come in, you're going to have a really bad day. I'm just putting it that blunt. We're prioritizing things as best we can, but you know, it's the most impacted, the highest values, the highest risks that are going to go to the top, and unfortunately, what comes with that is probably several bad days, weeks, nights, that kind of stuff that comes along with it. So, you know, take that conversation outside of your organization as well. And I think as chiefs and leaders, we owe it to our folks to have a serious sit down conversation internally in the organization too. And because we've got to figure out how to take care of our folks internally. We're going to burn them out. We're going to miss a lot of family time, a lot of summer kind of stuff that goes along with that. And people just need to be honestly and seriously prepared for it. And just, you know, figure out how we're going to survive as smaller organizations in the big scheme of things to make it through the process.
Okay, we're a little bit past 6:30. We're probably going to call it a meeting unless there's a last minute question that pops up. We sure appreciate all 64 of you hopping on. Our intent is to try and do something like this again in the future. We don't know exactly what that schedule looks like, but as it seems appropriate, we want to try and communicate and keep people informed and be on the same page as much as we can as a state here in Montana, amongst the state and all the local government agencies. So with that, we're going to call it a call. Feel free and shoot us a note if this was helpful or not helpful, or if there's some topics that we need to try and address in the future. And we sure appreciate all of you hopping on, and have a great evening. And unfortunately, I'm sure that we'll see many of you this summer at some point. So have a great evening.